we're going to look at OpenRoad through the eyes of a business manager. The first thing you want to do is log in. Once you're logged in, there are three main things that you want to see as a business manager. If you're not an admin, this section won't be visible to you, but there is this accounting section, and that's primarily what we're going to look at. So I think the three things that you're going to be looking at as a business manager is one, any individual show settlement. Two, how do you take a group of show settlements and export it as a journal entry, which exports it as a CSV file, and then you can import it into your software. And then three, how do you reconcile a settler's records, a tour manager's records, against the agency statement. So the first is for any given show, if you want to see a show settlement, anywhere that you see a show, you can click on View here, and then this page is called the Show Detail page. So we see the information about what the show is, the date, the city and state. We also see a map of the venue, or where the venue is in the city, and then we see the market page right here. Or I'm sorry, a map of the market right here. And then down below, we see a summary of the show settlement information, which we'll look at in a little bit more detail. Any notes related to the show. This is a graph showing how much the band has earned in headline income over time. This is obviously not, this is just an example here, a demo site. And then user logs here, changes that have been made. So this is the show detail page. If you want to get in and see the settlement, which is likely where you'll want to be, you would just click on settlement. And here we get the same basic show information here, and you can toggle between shows. And then we've got our financial information. So we've got the show gross, the total and the ticket sales, the paid attendance, the estimated peak set attendance. This is for future analytics. It doesn't have a whole lot of bearing right now. The venue settlement sheets would be links here. So if a settler has added them, you would see it as an active link in the file name right here. And you can click this button. If you've got a copy that you want to load up, you've got a PDF or JPEG, you can click upload and it will attach them. Performance income is the total that the artist earned for the night. So this would be guarantee plus back end. Buyout income, this and these little information bubbles here will show some further information. Buyout income would be production. This is not the meals buyout generally. If you want to track that here, you can, but since that is not usually settled at settlement, that's not what this is meant for. This is meant for production buyout or lodging buyout and so on. Support income, if your deal was inclusive, the idea is performance income is the commissionable amount. So if you had an inclusive deal, then you can, let's say it was $1,500, that was $1,000 was for your client and $500 was for support. So you can use that here. Alternatively, you don't need to use this. If you had an inclusive deal, you can just put what the artist actually earned in this field. State tax withheld. This is, of course, for a state like California or Massachusetts where income tax is withheld. Deposit. I should also mention show income here. So you have three sections, both here and on the merch area. What was the total earnings? What was withheld or being held somewhere else? What are the buckets where the money is being held? And then what is expected to be due at settlement and how much was picked up. So we did our income. The various deductions or buckets where money is being held would be state tax, withheld, deposit at the agency. Other show deductions, this is about to be two different fields here. One will be fan club sales. So if you have an artist that's doing their own fan club sales and they're holding that money, then that would obviously come out of show settlement, and that would be an asset that you're holding onto. So fan club will be here, and then other show deductions. An example of this might be in New York, where they sometimes have a parking fee or a hazer / fog machine fee. in New York City, for example. Sometimes those come out after settlement, after the artist's fee is calculated. So you could use that here. So once you have those numbers, then it gives you an expected due at settlement. In this case, it's $1,000. If let's say we were to add 500 in buyout income, this obviously automatically calculates. These gray fields are the automatic calculations. And then checks received. So say you put in your check number 1255, let's say, for $500, and let's say that you received cash for 1,000. So your show receipts total is 1,500 and the variance is 0. If you only received 800 in cash, oops, 800 in cash, then you'd have a $200 negative variance. And the settler can submit this settlement even with the negative. You wouldn't be able to export the journal entry as a business manager, but you would be able to at least do this part. So we put here the show variance notes, let's say, not sure, you could leave it like that. Agency commission is calculated based on what you have in your settings. This is assuming the 10%. Reconciliation notes is for you, the business manager, to keep notes about changes that you might make to this from what the settler had submitted, or it could be when you're making notes with the agency reconciliation. This field will carry over into our agency reconciliation section, so I'll show you that in a moment. Merchandise sold by, you can either say no merch, which would just put zeros in all these fields. You do have to have a number in every field here, so the settler, in order to submit, they'd have to at least recognize that there was a 0. If you click no merch, it just automatically puts it to 0. If the venue sold, then it will, the sheet reformats itself to be as if you're going to be picking up a check. So what was your total income? What were the fees that were withheld by the venue? And what's it expected at settlement? And then receiving a check. So this would be for festivals or amphitheaters that sell on the behalf of the artist. And then artist would be if you're running it through Square or at Venue Register, whatever it is that you use. So you've got your credit card sales and credit card tips, little bubble here to remind you if you're using Square how to do the math to separate those two numbers. But credit card sales, tips, and cash sales. And then your deductions, credit card fees, how much you paid the venue in cash for commission, if you had to pay a venue seller, if there were any other deductions. So then we have two calculations, credit card amounts and cash amounts. So those are displayed here. And then we expect that the merch manager or the settler, whoever, counts up their actual cash that goes to the tour bank and puts it here. So when this is all done, you would click, in this case, well, I'll show you revise settlement. And this says, it's a little note to remind you to upload a venue settlement sheet. There's nothing more important than the venue settlement sheet because that enables you, the business manager, to piece together things that might not have been recorded properly. So you can upload it now, or I don't have one and it's impossible to get one, meaning that it just doesn't exist. Just trying to express the severity of getting the sheet. So I'm going to say I don't have one. And now this is giving me a choice to send a settlement email. One has already been sent. And if you revise this and want to send it to the team, you can choose yes, send. And we can look at what those look like here in a moment. So I'll say yes, send. Now this has been submitted. And that is the process. So this is what your settler is doing. You can come in here and make changes. Sometimes they might not get the state tax withholding correct, or it could be any number of things. So you as the business manager are able to come in here and edit as you see fit, since ultimately you're the one that's going to be exporting these, the journal entries. So now let's look at the journal entry export. We have this show that we just worked on, and you see here that one showed not ready to export. So the way that this works is, I'll show you the configuration first. You've got three main sections here. You've got configuring the exports. You've got this where you're actually setting up, you're selecting the shows you want to export, and then you are putting in any class indication here. This would be for QuickBooks, or if you're using DataFaction or some other software, if you have a some kind of designation like a class in QuickBooks, you can set those here. And then the final part is once you actually export it, you'll get these CSV file that you can use to import into the software. So the way that you configure the exports is first you have to map your fields. So we use, right now we only have one integration here, which is this app called Business Importer that can configure these entries to put into a CSV file. So performance income, you can just put in here the various fields that you're going to use in your software. So if you had sub-accounts in QuickBooks, you could say income and then a colon like this, support income. All right, so those are a few examples here. Once you have all of these fields mapped to your chart of accounts, you'd hit save, and then we won't be able to export this with a variance, so I'm going to quick change this to be that we received 1,000 cash. I'm not going to send an email. And now we can export this, so I'm going to select this. If you have a class that you want to use for performance and for merchandise, you can do that here. Again, this is specifically thinking about QuickBooks, but if you're using DataFaction or Xero or any other software, you can also use this feature. So here we might say, all right, so these will be our two classes. I'm going to export the selected show, export it, download the sync file, and this is what the journal entry looks like. So it's got a journal entry number, that's the doc number. It's got a date, which is the date of the actual show. And then we'll come back to this description in a second. These are the accounts that we mapped. So we said performance income, $1,000 credit, and then this is the class that we set up. Again, this is for QuickBooks, but eventually we're going to build a DataFaction import as well. The notes, what it does is it concatenates the date, the city, state, the venue, and then what the field is, the name of the field in the in Open Road. So you see performance income, buyout income, and so on. So it's a very nice, clean journal entry. You can see all the debits and credits. From here, if you're using Business Importer, you would configure Business Importer and then pull this file in, and it automatically imports into the QuickBooks file so that you can take a sequence of, let's say you had 10 shows from a tour, 20 shows from a tour, all those journal entries would be in here and ready to go. Once they come into your software, then the way that I've seen it work is that you can take the checks that are received and put those into undeposited funds. So you can track to make sure that every undeposited fund is received, so show check never goes missing. Your tour cash bank, I will show you in Open Road in a second, but you can reconcile that just like it was a bank account. You'll have money going in and out. Square or whatever your register is that you use for merch, you can track that to be sure it always balances to zero at the end of the month. And then your due to from agency account, you can also reconcile in your accounting software using these journal entries. So you've got your booking fee, you can see here, which is a debit, and then due to from agency is a credit. And then further up, do we have a deposit here? It doesn't look like we do, but if you had a deposit at the agency, that would show as due to from the agency as well. So you can track deposits plus payments due to them and reconcile it just like a bank account. And then you can see all of your past exports here. Click back here and you can see all the past exports. And if ever you need to undo one, you just click view and then undo export. And then you can create a new one if there was a mistake that you need to fix. So that's the journal entry export. I'm going to show you agency reconciliation in a second. And I'm going to show you the cash bank. So this cash bank here is showing examples of what, I forget the show that we were just working on, but I think this is it here. So performance cash from the show. As soon as we recorded that show settlement and hit submit, it brought $1,000 over to the cash bank and deposited it. So as of 9/16, this balance would have been $1,400. The tour manager, the settler, whoever's responsible for cash on the road, can then record manually by just clicking add transaction. We could add something here and say per diem payment. Let's say we paid $100 out to Steve Smith TMPDs, right? Say $20 times 5 days. Hit save, and now we can see that the balance is $1,050. You can request, as a business manager, you can request your store manager, your settler, to audit their cash once a week, once a tour. Let's say that they got in here and did an audit, and they should have 1,050, but they only have 1,000, 50 less than expected. They can say not certain, or they can say something like gave $50 tip to bartender. And then you hit save. The system asks if you want to record an adjustment. You can say yes, and then it would automatically record this $50 adjustment here. Of course, if this actually was a tip to the bartender, then we would change this, and instead of it being an adjustment, you as the business manager might come in here and say, well, that's actually an expense. We're going to record it as such. And we can see that the audit has this diagonal pattern here. You can see one down here, so that you know at any given date on this case, in this case on 3/15, what the balance of the tour cash bank was. All right, and then the last section to show you here is the agency reconciliation. So we have 2 shows that haven't been yet reconciled with the agency. The way this works is it mimics the agency statement that you'll get from your agency. So you can select a show and start a batch. And here's our reconciliation batch. We have the Brooklyn Bowl Nashville, $1,000 income, $500 deposit. You as the business manager can have in one window the agency statement, and in this window you can have your open road open right next to it, and you can just compare the fields. So you say 1,000 performance, they say 1,000. Your settler says 500 on deposit and $100 commission, 400 due to the band. Let's say theirs is the same, then you can just mark it done. You can always print this. I'll bring this into the window in a second. You can save this as a PDF. Here is what the agency reconciliation looks like. So sometimes you might find it helpful to send this to the agency before you actually get their statement, just to say this is the data that the settler has submitted, and all the shows would be listed on here, and you can see that the totals are up here. So you would expect at the end of this that 400 would be due to the band. The agencies very often are just trying to get this information also from the promoters. So Open Road is what we have found is that, or what we've heard feedback in our surveys is that Open Road is saving them anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour per show in admin time. So you can use this as a tool to help the agencies as well. You can upload the agency statement file here. This money saved is to keep track for you as a business manager of how this tool has helped you save money. So let's say that you have 1,000 performance income here, but they have 1,500, and the reason is a discrepancy with support. In your case, you would be correct here, where you want it to be $1,000 as the performance income and a commission just on the 1,000, not on the 1,500. So if that was the case, you'd be saving $50 for the client, 10% of the 500 that you discovered. So you can put here $50 saved, and then in reconciliation notes, you can say found, or you could say something like agency initially commissioned on support income. $500, something like that. So then you can hit save progress, or you can close the reconciliation. And if you close it, then it just ends up in your batch of closed reconciliations that you can always go back and view it. And just like the journal entries, you can undo it if you get a new statement with amendments. So we've looked at agency reconciliation, journal entry export, and the Tor Cash Bank, and the show settlements. Those are the primary tools for a business manager. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, email team@openroad.ltd. Thanks.